Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye in Africa. Tonight, the head of South Africa's tax collection agency has been fired as President Cyril Ramaphosa cracks down on corruption and tackles the sensitive issue of land reform ahead of next year's general elections. Also, Nigerian authorities say that at least 8 people have been killed in multiple attacks in the northeast around Maiduguri. And poor communities in the Kenyan countryside are being given a monthly stipend as part of a study looking at ways to end poverty in Africa. But first, the head of South Africa's tax collection agency has been fired. Tom Moyane had been suspended in March, and President Cyril Ramaphosa pulled the plug and sacked him on Thursday after a judicial inquiry said that his appointment had been a calamity for the tax service. Moyane had been an ally of former leader Jacob Zuma, who resigned back in February. Now, ahead of elections next year, Ramaphosa's tried to distance himself from his predecessor's scandal-tainted leadership and associates. He's called it a dark period of rampant corruption. On Thursday, he vowed to testify before the commission investigating the extent of graft under Zuma and crack down on shady behaviour. Another pressing issue for Ramaphosa as he tries to whip up popular support is land reform. It's a sensitive subject, and white farmers want more representation in the government's preparations for constitutional changes to allow the expropriation of white-owned land to tackle racial imbalances in property ownership.
Answering his critics and reassuring investors, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa sought to downplay the growing controversy surrounding the country's planned land reforms.
We are going to craft a solution, and it will be a South African solution. Land grabs will not be allowed. We will make sure that everything is done in terms of our laws, our constitution.
Since the end of apartheid in 1994, South Africa has attempted to redistribute white-owned land to black farmers. But progress has been slow, with the government only able to buy land from those willing to sell. In July 2018, Cyril Ramaphosa said he would amend the constitution to allow the forceful expropriation of white farmers without compensation. The move raised concerns of interracial violence and economic collapse, and drew criticism from U.S. President Donald Trump. Even those supposed to benefit from the reform say it's not doing enough. With no direction or formal training, many new farmers haven't been able to fully exploit their new land.
The farm is not profitable. The government never helped us. You can see the state this farm is in. We were never trained. We know nothing about farming.
Faced with growing pressure, South African authorities say they haven't authorized any forced property seizures and that they're still deliberating on the best way to redistribute the land.
Nigerian authorities say that at least 8 people have been killed in multiple attacks in the northeast around Maiduguri. Witnesses say, though, that at least 13 died in Wednesday night's raids. Dozens of suspected members of Boko Haram reportedly arrived in 7 trucks before targeting Bulubuin and Kofa villages, as well as a camp for displaced people near Delori. Another nearby camp houses about 10,000 people forced from their homes during the 9-year Boko Haram insurgency. Jihadists there reportedly exchanged fire with troops and civilian guards before overrunning the facility. Despite the government's insistence that Boko Haram is nearly defeated, the country is still regularly hit by heavy fighting from the militants. Poor communities in the Kenyan countryside are being given about €20 a month as part of a study looking at ways of ending poverty in Africa. The trial program's looking at the potential impact of a universal basic income. Take a look.
Monica earns a living rearing chickens in this village in western Kenya. She developed the business with her husband thanks to a project by a US NGO offering villagers a free cash income. Every month for 2 years, she receives about €20, a sum that has changed her life.
This money will take me out of poverty because after having fulfilled all my dreams, I can then invest my savings in my business and grow it, and I'll have a better life.
Rethinking humanitarian aid by giving out cash directly is seen as the best way to fight poverty in Africa, according to Give Directly. Since October 2016, the NGO has been studying the effectiveness of universal income.
When you give people cash, the first thing you give them is choice. Pretty much, we are telling you, like, here are the resources. Make the decision on how you want to use it. So you're giving people a choice, which traditional aid doesn't do.
About 20,000 people are taking part in this universal income campaign, which they say is the largest ever such study. Beneficiaries are divided into several groups, with some receiving money for 2 years, while others receive the same amount for 12 years. Despite fears that the money may not be put to good use, villagers insist the cash will not be squandered.
How would you buy something with the 2,000 shillings, which is only enough to feed you? How can you buy useless things? That money is for you to earn a living and not to buy useless things.
According to the World Bank, over a third of Kenyans live below the international poverty line of $1.90 a day. With the trial still in its early stages, these villagers are hoping to reap the benefits, lifting them permanently above it.
In Gabon, tensions are high between logging companies and villagers who are becoming dispossessed of their ancestral forests. Timber companies don't always respect the compensation promised to local populations, who've now resorted to makeshift roadblocks and complaining to the authorities. Take a look.
These villagers in northern Gabon are blocking the roads to their village with timber in a desperate attempt to stop an Asian logging company in its tracks. The company has yet to provide any compensation for cutting down trees, and now the locals are angry.
When a company goes to a village, there are requirements. And in these requirements, we have asked for the construction of a school and a health centre. But so far, the company has not responded.
Since 2014, companies have had to agree to finance projects for local villages in areas where they're logging. The law is a form of compensation for villagers who would otherwise farm and hunt in these forests.
Logging companies now need to respect what they have been told. When someone has been granted a logging permit, then the logging companies should get along with the locals. They may exploit the forest, but locals must benefit from this exploitation.
The companies say their delays are due to slow administration and a lack of resources rather than a lack of goodwill.
We are still in the process of setting up. We have not yet reached the speed necessary to be able to both produce and to compensate the population.
More than 150 logging companies are working in Gabon, and with the sector representing 4% of the GDP, the government is increasingly investing in the timber sector. But rampant corruption and a lack of economic benefits may worsen the relationship between villagers and businesses for years to come.
And finally, Britain's Prince Charles was in Gambia on Thursday as he began a 9-day tour of Africa. He congratulated the former British colony for its return to the Commonwealth. Now, that was back in February, 5 years after its now exiled authoritarian former leader, Yahya Jammeh, pulled the country out. Prince Charles and his wife Camilla will be flying to Ghana next, that'll be on Friday, and to Nigeria on November the 6th. That's it for Eye on Africa. Thanks for joining us. Do so again if you can. Take it.
2 years after Donald Trump's surprise victory in the US elections, the midterms have become a referendum on both the man and his policies. Will Trump's Republican Party win even more seats in Congress? Or can the Democrats make up ground on the GOP, especially in the House of Representatives?
There were announcements
Get election results as they come in from our correspondents in Washington, starting 3 a.m. Paris time. Stay tuned to on-the-spot analysis by our reporters in key states across the US. Don't miss this special edition, US midterm elections, all night long on France 24 and France24.com.